The day of my wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the day that changed everything. I still remember waking up before sunrise, unable to sleep because of excitement. My heart raced as I stared at the ceiling of the luxury bridal suite overlooking the city skyline. The room was filled with fresh white roses, gift baskets from friends, and handwritten notes wishing me happiness. For months, I had dreamed about this day. After 3 years together, I was finally marrying the man I loved. At least, that's what I thought. My name is Emily Carter, and at 28 years old, I believed I had my entire future figured out. I was a successful architect, financially independent, and deeply in love with my fiancé, Daniel. He was charming, handsome, ambitious, and knew exactly how to make people feel special. Everyone adored him, especially my family. Sometimes I joked that my parents loved Daniel more than they loved me. Unfortunately, that joke wasn't entirely inaccurate. The first thing I did that morning was check my phone. Dozens of messages filled the screen. Congratulations. Best wishes. Can't wait to see you walk down the aisle. I smiled as I read them. Then I noticed something strange. No message from Daniel. At first, I didn't think much about it. He was probably busy preparing with his groomsmen. The wedding was massive. More than 300 guests were expected. There were photographers, videographers, wedding planners, caterers, musicians, florists, and enough moving pieces to keep an army occupied. I put my phone aside. There would be plenty of time to talk later. By noon, the bridal suite was filled with activity. My bridesmaids moved around excitedly while makeup, artists, and hairstylists worked nonstop. Laughter echoed through the room. Champagne glasses clinked. Music played softly in the background. Everything looked perfect, yet something felt off. I couldn't explain it. It was just a feeling, the kind that settles in your stomach and refuses to leave. Around 1 o'clock, my maid of honor, Jessica, walked into the room holding her phone. Her expression immediately caught my attention. Jessica was not someone who hid emotions well. Something was bothering her. "What happened?" I asked. She hesitated. "Nothing." Jessica, "It's probably nothing." That answer guaranteed it was something. I put down my makeup brush. "What is it?" She looked around to make sure nobody else was listening. Then she lowered her voice. "I saw Daniel earlier." My stomach tightened. "Okay." He seemed distracted. I frowned. "Distracted how?" "I don't know." She looked uncomfortable. "Just different." I laughed nervously. "Jessica, every groom is nervous on his wedding day." "Maybe?" But she didn't sound convinced. Before I could ask more questions, one of the wedding coordinators entered carrying a clipboard. "Emily, we need you downstairs for photographs." The moment passed, but Jessica's words stayed with me. Daniel seemed different. By 3 o'clock, guests had begun arriving. Luxury cars lined the entrance of the hotel ballroom. Friends and relatives filled the lobby. The venue looked breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Thousands of flowers decorated every corner. The ballroom looked like something from a fairy tale. My parents couldn't stop smiling. My mother cried every 20 minutes. My father spent the afternoon telling anyone who would listen how proud he was. Everything appeared perfect, but Daniel still hadn't called. Not once. Not even a simple text message. I checked my phone repeatedly. Nothing. When I finally mentioned it to my mother, she laughed. "Sweetheart, he's probably overwhelmed." "Maybe?" "Stop worrying." I nodded, but the uneasiness remained. An hour before the ceremony, I was escorted into a private bridal waiting room. Tradition prevented Daniel and me from seeing each other before the wedding. Normally, I would have loved the anticipation. That afternoon, it felt unbearable. I checked my phone again. Still nothing. Then, something unexpected happened. A notification appeared. Not from Daniel, from social media. A tagged photograph. Curious? I opened it. The image showed several wedding guests standing together in the hotel lobby. Nothing unusual. Then I noticed something in the background. A woman. Tall, blonde, elegant, standing beside Daniel. They weren't simply talking. His hand rested on her lower back, the way couples touch when they're comfortable with each other. My heart skipped. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe it was innocent. I zoomed in. The woman looked familiar. Very familiar. Then recognition hit me. Rachel Morgan, Daniel's ex-girlfriend, the woman he supposedly hadn't spoken to in years. The woman he assured me meant absolutely nothing. The woman he once described as ancient history. Suddenly, my stomach felt like stone. I stared at the image. Maybe she had simply attended the wedding. That wasn't impossible. They shared mutual friends. But why hadn't Daniel mentioned she would be there? And why did they look so comfortable together? A knock interrupted my thoughts. Jessica entered. One glance at my face told her something was wrong. What happened? Without speaking, I handed her my phone. She studied the photograph. Her expression darkened immediately.
Oh.
That single word terrified me. You know something. She looked away. Jessica. Silence. Tell me. She sat beside me. Slowly, carefully, as if choosing her words could somehow soften them. A few weeks ago, I saw Daniel having coffee with someone. The room suddenly felt smaller. Rachel? Jessica nodded. My heart dropped. You didn't tell me. I wasn't sure. Not sure about what? They said it was accidental. I stared at her. What? Daniel claimed they bumped into each other by coincidence. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You knew this for weeks? I didn't want to ruin your relationship. Over something that might have been innocent. I stood up abruptly. The room began spinning. How many times? I don't know. My hands were shaking now. For 3 years, Daniel had always insisted Rachel was completely out of his life. Completely. Yet somehow she was attending our wedding, standing beside him, and meeting him privately weeks before the ceremony. None of it made sense. I tried calling Daniel. Straight to voicemail. I called again. No answer. Again. Nothing. Fear slowly transformed into anger. Something was wrong. Very wrong. At that moment, another knock sounded at the door. A hotel employee entered carrying a small envelope. Miss Carter? Yes. This was left at the front desk for you. I took it automatically. The employee left. Jessica and I exchanged confused looks. There was no return address, no name, nothing. Just my name written neatly across the front. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside was a single folded note and a flash drive. The note contained only one sentence. If you're about to marry Daniel, watch the contents of this drive first. The room went silent. Jessica looked horrified. I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. What is this? She whispered. I don't know. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then Jessica grabbed her laptop. No. I swallowed hard. Yes. She inserted the flash drive. The screen loaded. A folder appeared. Inside were several video files. My hands felt ice cold. The first video was dated 6 days earlier. Jessica clicked play. The footage came from a restaurant security camera. At first, the image was blurry. Then 2 people walked into frame. I immediately recognized Daniel, and sitting across from him, Rachel. Neither of them looked uncomfortable. Neither looked like former lovers reconnecting by accident. They looked intimate, comfortable, familiar. My breathing became shallow. The video continued. Then Rachel reached across the table and took his hand. Daniel didn't pull away. My heart shattered. Jessica immediately paused the video. Oh my God, the words barely registered. Because I wasn't listening anymore. I was staring at the screen, at the man I was supposed to marry in less than an hour, at the man who had promised honesty, loyalty, commitment, the man I trusted completely. There were still more videos in the folder, 5 more, and suddenly, for the first time all day, I wasn't worried about whether Daniel would show up to the wedding. I was terrified of what else I was about to discover. For several seconds, neither Jessica nor I spoke. The room felt impossibly quiet. I could hear my own heartbeat. Loud, fast, relentless. The laptop screen remained, frozen on the image of Daniel and Rachel holding hands across the restaurant table. A week ago, that sight would have seemed impossible. Now it felt devastatingly real. Jessica slowly looked at me. Emily, I'm fine. The lie came automatically. We both knew it wasn't true. I wasn't fine. I felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared. My wedding dress suddenly felt heavy. The room felt smaller. The future I'd spent years planning no longer seemed certain. Jessica reached for the laptop. You don't have to watch the rest. Yes, I do. My voice surprised even me. It sounded calm, almost emotionless. The kind of calm that appears right before a storm. I clicked on the second video. This one was filmed 3 days earlier. Again, Daniel and Rachel appeared together. This time, they were walking through a parking garage. The footage lasted less than a minute, but it contained everything I needed to see. Daniel kissed her. Not a friendly kiss. Not an accidental kiss. A kiss between two people who clearly weren't over each other. Jessica covered her mouth. I stared at the screen. Numb. Completely numb. The third video revealed even more. The Rachel and Daniel entering a hotel together. The fourth showed them leaving the next morning. The fifth contained screenshots of text messages. Hundreds of them. Messages exchanged over several months. I stopped reading after the first few pages. There was no point. The evidence was overwhelming. The man waiting downstairs wasn't the man I thought I knew. 3 years. 3 years together. 3 years of trust. 3 years of promises. And all of it had been a lie. Tears finally appeared. Not because I missed him. Because I felt foolish. I had ignored warning signs. Dismissed concerns. Defended him every time someone questioned his behavior. Now the truth sat directly in front of me. Impossible to deny. Jessica squeezed my hand. What do you want to do? I looked at my reflection in the mirror. A bride. Perfect makeup. Perfect dress. Perfect wedding. Built around the wrong man. Then I stood up. I'm ending this. Jessica blinked. Right now? Right now. The determination in my voice surprised both of us. Maybe heartbreak had finally turned into clarity. Because for the first time all day, I knew exactly what I needed to do. 20 minutes later, the wedding coordinator entered the room. She smiled brightly. It's time. I smiled back. Actually, there has been a slight change of plans. Confusion crossed her face. What do you mean? I'd like everyone seated. Her smile faded. Everyone? Everyone? Guests. Family. Friends. Everyone. The coordinator hesitated, then nodded. Within 15 minutes, the ballroom was full. More than 300 guests sat waiting. The musicians prepared. The photographers adjusted cameras. My parents looked emotional. Daniel stood at the altar. Smiling. Confident. Completely unaware. I watched him from behind the closed ballroom doors. The sight made me sick. He looked so comfortable. So certain. As if the future already belonged to him. The doors opened. Music began. Every guest turned toward me. I started walking. Slowly. Gracefully. Exactly as everyone expected. The ballroom looked beautiful. The flowers. The candles. The crystal chandeliers. Everything was perfect. Except the groom. Daniel smiled as I approached. You're beautiful. I stopped several feet away. His smile faltered slightly. Something in my expression must have warned him. The officiant cleared his throat. We are gathered here today. No. The word echoed through the room. Every conversation stopped. The officiant looked confused. What? I turned toward the guest. More than 300 faces stared back at me. Waiting. Wondering. Confused. I took a deep breath. This wedding isn't happening. Gasps spread through the ballroom. My mother's face went white. My father stood abruptly. Daniel looked stunned. What are you talking about? I slowly reached into the small handbag hidden beneath my bouquet. Then I removed the flash drive. His face instantly lost color. That reaction told me everything. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The room had become completely silent. Daniel glanced around nervously. Emily, let's talk privately. No. His voice became desperate. Please. I shook my head. For months you've been talking privately. Rachel's name hadn't even left my mouth, yet panic immediately appeared in his eyes. Another confirmation. The guests exchanged confused whispers. Daniel stepped closer. You're making a mistake. I laughed. The sound surprised everyone, including me. No, Daniel. My eyes filled with tears. But you did. The room watched as I pulled out several printed screenshots, the same screenshots from the flash drive, and I held them up. People nearby immediately recognized what they were: text messages, photos, evidence. The whispers grew louder. Daniel looked like he might collapse. Emily. His voice cracked. It isn't what it looks like. I couldn't believe he was actually saying that. Even now, even after being caught, he was still lying. I looked directly into his eyes. When exactly were you planning to stop cheating on me? He had no answer, because there wasn't one. The silence told the truth better than any confession could. Someone near the front gasped. Another person whispered Rachel's name. Everything was unraveling. Fast. Daniel looked around desperately, as if searching for someone to save him. Nobody moved. Nobody defended him. For the first time, he stood completely alone, exactly where he belonged. Then, something unexpected happened. A woman stood up from the back row. The entire room turned. Rachel. She had actually attended the wedding. The sight shocked everyone, including Daniel. She walked forward slowly. Her expression wasn't confident. It was ashamed, deeply ashamed. She stopped, several feet away, then looked directly at me. I'm sorry. The room froze. Rachel took a shaky breath. He told me the engagement was basically over. Daniel closed his eyes. She continued. He said you were staying together because of the wedding plans. The whispers intensified. Rachel looked devastated. I didn't know the truth until recently. For the first time, I believed her. Not because of what she said, because of how she said it. Daniel had lied to both of us. Rachel turned toward him. I never would have come back if I'd known. Then she walked away. The ballroom doors closed behind her. Silence followed. Daniel stood motionless. His carefully constructed world had collapsed, just like mine. Except there was one important difference. I hadn't caused this. He had. The officiant quietly stepped aside. The musicians stopped playing. Nobody knew what to do. So I did. I removed my engagement ring. 3 years of memories fit inside that tiny piece of jewelry. Good memories, bad memories, false memories. I looked at it one final time, then handed it back to Daniel. His hands trembled. Emily. I shook my head. No. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but strangely I felt lighter. Free. You don't get to break my heart and still keep my future. For the first time that day, applause erupted. One person, then another, then dozens more. Guests began standing, supporting me, encouraging me. My father reached the front first. He wrapped his arms around me. I'm proud of you. The words nearly broke me, because they were exactly what I needed to hear. Not because I was getting married, because I was walking away. Sometimes courage isn't staying. Sometimes courage is leaving. Over the following months, life slowly improved. The heartbreak didn't disappear overnight. Neither did the embarrassment, but every day became easier. I focused on my career, my family, my friends, myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't building a future around someone else's promises. I was building one around my own. A year later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment overlooking the city. The sunset painted the skyline gold. My phone buzzed. A message from Jessica. Still grateful you didn't marry that idiot. I laughed, then typed back, me too. Looking back now, I realized something important. The worst day of my life wasn't actually my wedding day. It was the day I discovered the truth. And the best day of my life was the day I chose myself instead. Because sometimes the ending you desperately wanted isn't the one you need. Sometimes life tears apart your plans so it can give you something better. And sometimes walking away from the wrong person is the first step toward finding the right future. I never became Daniel's wife, but I became something far more important. A woman who knew her worth. And that changed everything.